You're on.
Welcome to Aviation Hangar Flying, episode number 90. Why is marketing and sales so hard?
Who says it's hard?
Everybody we talk to. It is. It's not the easiest thing in the world, and it has actually gotten harder in recent years, I think.
Well, more difficult.
Exactly. So I'm Paula Williams.
I'm John Williams.
And we are ABCI, and ABCI's mission is
to help all you ladies and gentlemen out there in the aviation world sell more products and stuff, services.
Absolutely. So use the tag AvGeekMarketing if you would like to comment or contribute or complain or any other thing you'd like to do about this episode or any other. And we will do our best to reply to every tweet or mention or comment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So the big ideas here, the reason that sales and marketing is so hard, there are actually three of them. One is that there has been a history of charlatans running around doing sales and marketing.
And that's throughout the freaking world.
Absolutely. The second thing is that right now in particular, worse than ever I've seen it, we have a culture of suspicion.
I don't know if it's the worst I've seen.
Well, you've been around a little longer than I have, but it is the worst I have ever seen.
Okay, fine.
As far as a culture of suspicion. And then the third thing is that not everyone is an expert in your field, but they want to act like they are, which makes sales and marketing harder than it should be, right?
Difficult anyway.
Yeah, okay. And then we'll also talk about some of the things that you can do to make it easier, because we don't want to just spend the whole episode complaining. But to start with, we'll just whine.
Well, speaking for yourself, of course.
Absolutely. No, I mean, this seriously, when we talk with clients, this is one of the things that comes up fairly frequently, even among people who already know this. They sometimes just need to vent because it really is hard. Sales and marketing is not easy. And I tell them, if this was easy, everybody would be doing it. Mm-hmm. And everybody would be selling millions and millions of their product or service, and nobody would be having any problems doing this. So with rare exceptions, we do have to work pretty hard at building credibility. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One is this history, the suspicion. And John, when you and I first started talking about sales and marketing, and it was something that I did and something that you didn't do, and when you found out I was into sales and marketing, you were a little suspicious of me. Is that true?
Well, at least what you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
I had a long discussion with my marketing prof during business school, and she was of the opinion that nothing, absolutely nothing in history has been sold without marketing first.
Mm-hmm. And you said BS, right?
That's right. That's right.
That's not what I was going to say.
Well, the thing is, it may be, to give her a little bit, it may be unintentional marketing, I suppose, but I remember one of the first things I wanted, I didn't even know what it was, but I saw this bicycle with a motor on it. And it looked like it was put together pretty well, and there was no name on it or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I want one.
Was it in a store or just?
No, I was just riding around in the small town I lived in.
Cool.
I didn't end up getting one of them. I found out probably 50 years later, it was a Harley Davidson.
Yeah.
Okay. But I didn't know that then. It was just two wheels and a motor, which is what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up getting an old, I don't know the model, an Allstate Cushman.
Ah, fun.
Which was a single speed thing that would do about 40 miles an hour if you're lucky. Anyway, so I always brought that example up to her, and she said, well, it was marketed. I said, no. I just wanted two wheels. I saw that and I got something else. So I didn't, it was, so anyway.
But since then,
you would argue the other way just like she did, but I'm still of the opinion.
Exactly.
Not
I mean,
everything.
If you consider, product placement, product pricing, all of that as marketing, the 4 Ps.
Yeah, but none of that had anything to do with the fact that I saw a bike with a motor on it.
Right.
There was no name. nobody trying to sell me anything.
Okay. Placement, it was in your
They
city.
didn't place it. Some dude was riding it around.
Okay, and it may have been accidental, but that was in your way, so it was put where you would see it.
It was not placed where I would see it.
Okay,
Somebody
it was where
riding
you
it
would see
around.
Fine. Okay, but the point is, there's a lot of people that are running around trying to sell things using either overinflated or downright false claims, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And that just makes it 1,000 times harder for the rest of us because we already have one strike against us. In fact, a lot of times the people that we talk to, they call us and say, you know what, I have dealt with marketing firms in the past and I am not happy with my experience.
And we make darn sure that whatever is said that we do is in fact factual.
Exactly. But we already have one strike against us in a lot of cases because we are a marketing firm. Just the fact that that is our profession puts us in the less than completely respected category in people's minds until they get to know us.
Right, but the thing is, we built up a history, and I think we'll talk to any of our previous clients or current clients, and they know.
Yeah, and we can talk about some of the ways that you can make that work for you as well. But just the fact that you're a salesperson, sometimes that puts the suspicion against you to start with. And
oh yeah, I mean, there was a time when I sold cars, and I can tell you, of course, they had a different approach to sales, but everybody that came on the lot you had to approach, and called meet and greet was the first step. And then it goes on in the process. But everybody that came, even if they wanted to buy a car, they no.
Yeah, the first thing they say is no. First word out of their mouth is no. They default to spring-loaded to the no position, and that's the case because of this culture. That's the
as a matter of fact. But see, I wasn't the typical car salesman because I remember that a lady came on a lot in a relatively new truck, and she was very emotional and said she needed to replace her truck, and I said, okay, and I looked at her and said, I looked at the truck, I said, well, what's wrong with that one? And she told me, and I said, this isn't going to sound like a sales guy, but you know what? You can go to your favorite mechanic, and for probably $185 to $285, you can have them fix that and use that truck. She said, really? I said, yeah. And she gave me a hug and was crying and left the lot. But, I can't do the sales thing to somebody I know doesn't need it.
Exactly. So, some of the sales courses that you've been in or other things, they would have fired you if they knew about that,
Well, and long ago, I went to an insurance, I won't use the name, sales course, and it was like 2 weeks, I think. And they said, when you walk out the door, pick up a rock, throw it on the ground, and whichever way it tumbles, go that way and sell a policy to every person you meet. And I did. And their process and procedure works. Still works. You can still do that today. But they said, because it's not your problem, it's our problem to collect, yours to sell.
Oh, that is evil.
So they would sign up. I had papers with me.
Yeah.
And I'm serious. Before I got to the car, I probably made 20 sales. I didn't last long there because I just realized what was going on. These people couldn't afford it, and they were going to be high pressured. So
and you couldn't sleep at night.
I went a different direction.
Yeah.
But and that's the reason people don't like salespeople.
Exactly. Understood. And so if you get that out of the way and say, okay, I understand. I'm starting with a strike against me because of the title sales and or marketing. That's okay. All right. So things have gotten worse, I think, in the last 6 months.
Well, I don't know. Because of the way I was taught, and this was in the 70s, late 70s when I did that. So there's some things you haven't experienced yet probably, but I have. So I can tell you that when I did that, these people completely said, oh, yeah, you're right. Sure, I'll sign.
Yeah. But I think people have gotten more suspicious since.
It would still work.
Okay.
I could get a refresher in that course, and I could do the same thing all over again.
Totally. Okay. Well, I totally agree with that, but I do think that there is something that the folks that are selling nowadays are fighting another headwind, and that is that people have become more suspicious of anything that they hear. Because of the fake news and whichever angle you're coming from politically, there has been BS on both sides of the fence.
Well, it's not politics all by itself.
No,
I did a project for a large financial organization, was interviewed, and they didn't say anything close to what my answers were to their questions.
Mm-hmm.
And this was just business. It was not even politics.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, was I upset. I tell you what, I went back to those guys and ripped them a new one and said, it's what we do. And that's not what we do,
Right.
ABCI.
Right. No,
But I wouldn't be here if we were doing that.
Exactly. But the point is that, people have a lot of suspicion about everything, not just politics. It's spilled over into environmental things, business things, economic things. Any topic you want to pick, there are people who will say the sky is green, and other people who will say the sky is blue, and everybody else is going to disagree. Simply because we have this culture of suspicion and argumentativeness.
And you know what's interesting?
Yeah.
I just read an article, I don't recall where.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the Wall Street Journal within the last week or so, that is absolutely no different
Mm-hmm.
from the 1850s.
Mm-hmm.
It's no different. And the historian that wrote the article went down and said this, and this back then, and compared to now, and I said, oh, well, that's interesting.
Yep. Well, we are at an interesting point in history, and it is something that plays into what happens to you when you're out there selling. So,
And if any of you guys were around that were there when Nixon got impeached, then that whole thing, I lived through that too. So, we could talk about lots of stuff, but let's
yeah,
keep going.
exactly. Okay, fine. So, the point being that, you just really need to understand and acknowledge the fact that, you can't lock horns with people nowadays without falling into a cultural thing that's going on. There's a quote that I love. We actually just found this, and I think I put it on my Facebook feed for a while, and it's argue like you're right, but listen like you're wrong.
Yep.
And if everybody would do that, then this whole problem would be solved. But not everybody's going to do that tomorrow. So.
No, they'll do A, but not B.
Right. That's true. Okay. And then the third reason that sales and marketing is so hard is because not everybody is an expert and not everybody knows as much as you think they do about your product or service. Right?
Or as they think they do.
So, you sell a specialized product. Your prospect probably knows very little about it. It has very little to do with what he does every day. The only thing that he knows is that he needs it, right?
Well, and some of those prospects nowadays will actually do research,
Mm-hmm.
not just on your website,
Mm-hmm.
but in other equivalent products or
Yeah.
services,
So,
and talk to people who have one or have seen one or have used one.
right.
And so they may have some pretty pertinent questions to ask.
Which is good. And, if they've looked at
But if they don't,
if they've looked at your website and your competitors' websites and YouTube and, asked their friends and things, then they may have some ideas, but they may have some wrong ideas as well.
oh yeah.
So, and the other thing is that your prospect will never admit what he doesn't know because he doesn't want to give you the upper hand because of the first two things we talked about. He thinks you're a charlatan and you're a bad guy until you get to know him better. So he doesn't want to give you the upper hand in the conversation, right?
Yep.
Perfectly natural, right?
So then the response is, what do you do? And you have a slide with that name.
I do, yes. So what do you do? I'll tell you what you don't do. Okay, this first slide is about what do you not do.
Well, actually, the whole thing is don't.
Yeah. Number one, don't be dishonest.
Exactly.
The first dishonest thing you say is you're over, game over, done, washed up. Go find another prospect, start over. Not going to happen. And the first thing out of the mouth of a lot of people that try to sell me something on the phone is, I'm not trying to sell you something.
Then why am I talking to you?
Exactly. And that's dishonesty. That, just cuts you right out of the whole process. And even if I did have an interest in what they had to say, they've got another strike against them because they've been personally dishonest to me. And they're a sales guy, so they have the second strike against them.
And I probably used this before in a previous podcast, but don't say these things sell themselves.
Oh, heaven forbid.
That happened. My daughter and she asked me to go with her to buy an up-rent car, and we were in this dealership, and she asked some very pertinent questions. She said, "Oh, don't worry about that. These cars sell themselves." I didn't say it, but I wanted to know, okay, really, where's the kiosk? Where do I put my credit card, and what the hell are you doing here?
Right, exactly. So don't exaggerate, don't be dishonest, both of which that is, these cars sell themselves. BS. Okay. Don't turn up the pressure, especially before you've built some credibility. Don't call more than once a week unless they ask you to. That's a pretty good rule of thumb. You do want to not give up on them, and you don't ever want to stop calling, but you never want to call more than once a week. Ideally, they're going to tell you when they want a call back.
Yep.
And that's what you do. Don't be insulting. Don't say, only stupid people use our competitor's product. Don't be insulting of your competitors or your prospects or anybody else.
In fact, I saw an ad once says, it's okay if you buy our competitor's product. They know what their product is worth.
Right. That's crazy. Aviation is a small world. So, you never know if somebody's wife or cousin or kid works for the competition, And the last one is don't give up. Don't ever give up.
No.
Right? Never, 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 never give up.
No,
Winston Churchill.
Most salespeople give up 1 to 5 calls short of a sale.
Absolutely. So what do you do given all of that? You build your credibility. So how do you build your credibility?
With great vigor.
Yeah, exactly. There's lots of things you can do to build your credibility. And the easiest probably is to set up your LinkedIn profile. Make sure you got a picture on there. You don't want to look like a terrorist, with a blank profile picture. You also want to make sure that all of the relevant details are there and you're as transparent as you can possibly be about your work history and everything else, so that people can find out, where else have you worked? What else have you done? What have you done that could possibly build your credibility or make people feel differently about you, right? YouTube is another one. A lot of people will do a sales presentation or even just do opinion pieces or product demonstrations or other things on YouTube that help build their credibility, because if people can see you, 86% of communication is nonverbal. And so you're a lot more credible if people can see what you're doing as opposed to just listening to you or reading what you've written. Blogs are great because it's a regular form of contact. If you've got something out there that you are consistent about, you're obviously investing in your product or service. You have a reputation to uphold, especially if there's a lot of people following it. There's a lot of things that you've got on the line that makes people feel better about you. Books. People have learned books are credible, a lot more credible than what they see online. From the time you're a little kid, you're taught to respect books, Get seen in the media. This is Pilot Partner. We just did this in another podcast, but most of our clients, when we do press releases for them, they get mentioned by Aviation press and also by the mainstream press. So you get all of those acronyms behind your name, or all of those logos that you can use on your website that associates your credibility with them. And so people may not believe CNN or Fox News, but when you have all of the media, on your website, that makes your product or service a lot more credible than it would be if you'd never been heard of before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Podcasts like this one, I've had a lot of people tell me when I talk to them on the phone, I listened to you talk about this topic, so I know how you feel about this, or I know you guys do this or that because you mentioned it in a podcast. So, podcasts are a great way to build credibility. Being the marketing company that does the podcast.
And they get distributed far and wide. We actually
Yeah.
had someone from over the water give us the call because they heard our podcast.
Yeah, that was actually from France. And I'm like, okay, that was cool. We don't translate it. We just
Yeah, that's right.
we do this in one language, but that's all right. It's great to have that kind of visibility, and also to have that kind of regular contact with people. It's pretty, I don't know what you would call it, almost intimate to have a regular conversation with people, and they feel like they know us when we don't know them. So it's a little weird to have a conversation with somebody who feels like they know us because they've been listening to our podcast for a while. You can be members of organizations that build your credibility, like NBAA or EAA or others that are respected by your group of prospects. So all of those things help build your credibility and get you out from under the shadow of the sales and marketing reputation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that charlatan snake oil thing going on. Okay, another thing that you can do is longer campaigns, right? This is a process that we used when we were talking about business-to-business campaigns, but it is just as long, often, depending on the size of the transaction in a business-to-consumer transaction, where you have to have multiple points of contact and touches and, connecting on social media and sending emails and sending direct mail packages and seeing them at events and, multiple times. But every single time, there's a theory that Stephen Covey uses in one of his books. I think it is the Eighth Habit. He talks about the emotional bank account. Every interaction that you have with a person is either a withdrawal or a deposit.
Yes.
So if you have a multitude of deposits into this emotional bank account with somebody, and they have more and more and more reasons to trust you, then it becomes easier for them to do a big transaction because they've seen you multiple times and you've always behaved honorably. Can I tell the story about how we met?
Would it do if I said no?
Well, John and I were working for competing consulting firms, and he asked if I wanted to go out for coffee. And I said no because I worked for a competing consulting firm.
Well, and she was on our team.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get her to meet with the team every morning for coffee, and she just refused to do it.
Right, exactly. So I was kind of suspicious of John for not good reasons, other than the fact that he was working for a competing consulting firm, and it was my experience with people that worked for competing consulting firms that they would throw you under the bus at the first given opportunity so that they could bring, kind of discredit your firm and bring more of their own people in and make more money, for their own contract. So that's kind of the environment we were in. And, John had multiple opportunities to throw me under the bus and didn't. So every single time we worked together on a project and every single time we interacted, he told the truth and he behaved honorably, and it was really cool. And, we actually got to know each other and ended up working together and ended up years later, married, because of this same phenomenon of, building credibility over time. And there's just no substitute or no shortcut for that, right?
Nope.
Yeah, unfortunately, for salespeople. But the nice thing is that also makes it much harder for a competitor to undercut you once you have a relationship with them in the aviation industry, because they get to know you and like you and trust you over a long period of time, right? Okay. So another thing that you can do to build credibility and to shorten the sales cycle and, to get past this whole thing that it is so hard, you want to do a variety of sales interactions, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of sales calls. And we talked about this last week as well when we were talking about business-to-business marketing. But whether you're selling to businesses or individuals, if you are prepared to be in this relationship for the long haul and to do multiple sales calls and touches, a lot of times you won't have to because your sales cycle will be shorter. But, you want to really like these people because it's going to be a long time in the process. Other things you can do: send a regular newsletter. Every interaction, once again, builds that emotional bank account. We like to do quarterly direct mail packages. and see people as often as we can at events and do, networking breakfasts and, $100 hamburgers and, fly-ins and other places where we actually get to see people in person. So that always helps. Mm-hmm. All right. Another thing you want to do is use a sales call checklist so that you are comfortable and you're not nervous on the sales call. You've got a checklist. You do it every time. You get really good at it. You end every call with one of 3 possible outcomes, which are
yes,
no,
not yet,
or not yet. And if it's a not yet, then you have an outline for the next call. They either tell you, call me again next quarter, next month, next year, whatever the situation is, or I need more information about the pricing, or I need more information about the integration with some other process or something.
It's interesting because we've been in this business so long.
Yeah.
Every time I go somewhere and to any business for any reason, I look at their approach and I think, oh, these guys need our help.
But we only do aviation,
right.
So you can't help the tire guys. You can't
exactly. They wouldn't believe you anyway. So
exactly. That's true. Okay, so do use the sales call checklist. Do also answer the questions your customer should be asking. So you can build a checklist like this. They may not trust you enough to ask you these questions, or they may not be educated enough to say, how long have you been in business? Do you do anything else besides aviation? What other types of services do you provide? And, all of the questions that you think they should be asking. And if you can provide that to them in a low-key sort of a way, like a downloadable checklist or something on your website, where you're providing the information that they would ask if they were comfortable enough or knowledgeable enough, then you can get past that charlatan hat and get a little information over the wall to them.
Well, if that's the trouble, just take the hat off and throw it in the corner.
Take the hat off. Yeah, exactly. I'm not marketing. That's the problem, though. Then you're being dishonest because, of course, I'm selling something.
I didn't say that. I said take the hat off. You said about charlatan hat, so don't wear a hat.
Don't wear a hat. Okay, cool. I actually like the sales hat. I don't mind making calls and saying, darn right, I'd love to have you as a customer. So,
what'd you do with my wife? I remember 15 years ago.
I hated sales calls. That's absolutely right. But, there is something about being honest, that's actually pretty refreshing.
And doing it all the time.
That's true. And also, you do something hard and you get good at it, and then you want to do it all the time. It's like short field landings. I couldn't stand them to start with. And then it was like all I ever wanted to do was short field landings because I got really good at them. Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay. Another thing you can do is provide testimonials, case studies, and success stories because those really help build your credibility because it's what other people say about you or other people say about their experience working with your product or service, right? Mm-hmm. It's a great way to build credibility. Right. So if you are not comfortable doing this yourself, we would be happy to help. We have a press release tip sheet that you can download that has lots of different ways that you can become newsworthy. And, some of those things are how to do a case study or how to do, a customer success story, things like that will make it give you more opportunities to talk with people, give them more material that they can find that helps build your credibility and so on. And if you are listening to this podcast during August of 2017, we are offering a bonus press release if you sign up for our content marketing subscription. So basically what that means is that we plan, write, edit, publish, and publicize 1 article per month, and you approve every stage. And we do have a 3-month minimum on that because we like to get to know our content marketing customers really well and get to know their business really well.
And for those of you listening, what she meant to say was July, not August.
July 2017. Did I say August?
Yes, you did.
Oh, okay. I said July. July 2017, then that is our special this month. And it actually is our best-selling product right now. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of people are really finding this helpful to be able to have us interview their happy customers and write a case study saying, this is my experience with this company, and they may not feel comfortable talking to you, or you may not feel comfortable talking to them, but having a third party do those interviews and write those case studies is sometimes really helpful. Mm-hmm. And we get good stuff.
Yes, we do.
Great stories out there about aviation companies, and they're a lot of fun to do. So go sell more stuff.
America still needs the business.
Yes, it does.
And actually, it was America needs the business, but I said still.
Yes.
Zig Ziglar quote.
Yep. America needs your business more than ever, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play, and do leave us a review. We love those 5-star reviews. That really does help more people find our podcast and stop doing random acts of marketing or horrible wastes of money and other kinds of things that are bad for them and bad for our industry, and contributing to that whole charlatan BS, right?
Exactly.
All right. Have a great afternoon, and thanks for joining us.
Ciao. Happy.